the first thing we neglect as we're building our businesses is our health.
Absolutely.
As a father, as a husband, you're always thinking about family, 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 family. You're not thinking about you. What if you go down, then the family goes down?
How many times per week should a man be having?
Ideally, every day.
Oh my God.
When mom and dad are connected sexually as a unit and bonded that way, the family is just stronger. So it's like, well, why would you not do that?
Call us Reyes on the humble show. Yeah, we all in. Yeah, we all in. So grab your boys now, cause you know we all win. Lift your hands up.
Entrepreneurs spend their health chasing money, and then eventually we have to spend our money chasing our health. And that's why on today's episode, I have a man in the building, my personal friend and physician, that is going to show you how to cover your health blind spots and potentially help you live a long, healthy life. Welcome back to the All In Podcast. I am your host, Carlos Reyes, accompanied by the usual suspects right across from me. They call him the most interesting man in the industry, Mr. Zadie. And to his right, I have one of the usual suspects, Mr. Born Closer, aka Mr. Adrian Salgado. And now to our very special guest, not only my personal friend, my personal physician, but a physician of some of the top entrepreneurs in the country, founder of Blind Spot Medical, Mr. Dr. David Boyd. Welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you for having me.
This is going to be fun.
Yeah.
Right? I feel like we did a good job preparing to give our listeners and anybody that's watching this show a treat today, right? So anyway, man, let's get straight to it. First and foremost, I just want to say I am forever grateful for taking me through your blind spot analysis that we went through last week. Right. That was an amazing experience. And any entrepreneur out there that is watching or listening, they need to do this. They need to go through your, what do you call it, by the way? What do you call your blind spot analysis that you do?
The actual process is
the actual process.
I call it the ultimate human analysis.
The ultimate human analysis. I love that. And it truly is. It really is. Forget the red carpet that you roll out with. The entrepreneur, the businessman or businesswoman gets, picked up, black car service and, they get the royal treatment from you and your staff. Right. But the depth that we get into as far as, going down the rabbit hole biologically and physically, right. Covering every single area of our body. Right. Mm-hmm. I remember, dude, the first thing that we did, right when we got to what do you call that? Scanning or
the imaging center.
Imaging center, right? Boom, brain MRI, right? Brain MRI, very easy, by the way. You guys made it extremely easy, and I'm one of those dudes that doesn't do extremely well in small spaces, right? But we were able to get through that very easy. It was very quick, thank God. So boom, brain MRI. And then we went and we did a CAT scan on everything, right? My heart, my arteries, my kidneys, my gallbladder, my liver, my prostate. I mean, what didn't we cover, right? And then after we did all that, you and I, we went for some lunch. We allowed all the images to develop.
30,000 images.
30,000 images to develop. And by the way, I had already done my blood work, my labs, right? About a week prior. So once you and I were done with lunch and we went and sat down and reviewed everything, I mean, it was eye-opening. It was eye-opening. And I wanted to ask you, number one, like, why aren't all business owners doing this exam with you?
I think one of the main reasons why they don't is, entrepreneurs are very, very focused individuals just by nature, right? Mm-hmm. And with that, as you're building business and you're taking care of, all of your customers or whoever it is that you serve, inevitably there's always fires that you're putting out. Mm-hmm. That's just how it works. So they usually will put themselves last.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Have you noticed, by the way, and I think every person in here will identify with this, the first thing we neglect, right, as we're building our businesses is our health.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Like I would say at least probably 90% of the time. It's not like 50-50.
Mm-hmm.
It's like 90% of the time, the first thing that we neglect as entrepreneurs when we're going through the building process and the lift, right, is our health. We completely just disregard it. Why is that?
I think it's very much a cultural thing. I mean, you think about it, particularly in the entrepreneur culture, it's like, 24/7, 365, 8 days a week, like, hustle all day. It's
that
like,
hustle culture, right?
Yes.
The grind mentality.
Yeah. And it's like, and if you're not doing that, then it's like showing that you're not serious.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's very
Mm.
much a cultural thing amongst entrepreneurs that you're supposed to put yourself last. It's championed when you don't sleep. No?
Yeah, there was
That's
was
right.
times where I would be in a car with Sal when I jumped in, when I made the leap of faith,
Yeah.
where I'm going on 24 hours, no sleep. All I had for a meal was a QT taquito and a 5-hour energy shot.
I remember. Yeah, I remember. For you, it was around 2017,
Yeah, it was
right?
2017.
About 8 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember, and again, now I'm starting to, go back to the lifting or the building process, which was like the first 3 to 5 years of building our organization. Same thing. I remember, pumping gas at a QT and just slamming down some taquitos there. There was no time blocking to have lunch or to eat. It was go, 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 go.
Right.
But here's the crazy thing about it now is, 'cause like we talk about, right? The sacrifice to the sacrifice that we make to make the money, and then using the money to gain the health back. But it comes full circle, right? Because at that time, you were shoving these things down your mouth because you needed some sort of substance just to keep going.
That's right.
It was just the wrong thing.
Absolutely.
And now what do we do now? We know we just need to eat something just to keep going, to energize our body. But we're more conscious of the things that we're eating,
way more,
as opposed to just grabbing a hot dog off the
does
roller.
this now, Doc, we're consciously making decisions like, does this speed me up or slow me down?
Sure.
Right. And instead of like, man, what do I want to eat today? It's like, no, now we ask questions like, how do I want to feel today?
Absolutely.
So a lot of things do change, but that comes with time and experience and wisdom. Right. So again, you know what the crazy part about Blind Spot Medical, I was talking to my family and I've talked to other entrepreneurs and business people, and I asked them like, hey, would you do it? Right. It's like a 50-50. Like some folks they're afraid to go through that type of analysis. Why do you think that is?
I think because it makes it, I think two reasons why. Number one, it's admitting that we don't have forever. The time is finite.
Yeah.
You think about it, and just in society nowadays, most folks don't really talk about death. You don't pay attention to, you just kind of always assume there's another day, even when like an elderly family member dies, it's nowadays it's almost surprising.
Yeah.
Whereas if you actually look back, particularly in American culture, if you go back to like 1800s, for example, like it used to be, no joke, you can check this out. There's a book called The American Way of Death. Pretty interesting. It talks about, not to be morbid, but it talks about how the culture of death has changed. For example, it used to be that, you would have cemeteries outside of churches. The cemeteries would intentionally have stones that were flat. Why? So that kids could play in that area. The culture was to have laughing, playing children and everything, to have like that parallel between life and death right there. It used to be that, in Sears catalog, you could buy a cabinet for your kitchen that when you die, you just take the shelves out. There's the coffin.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
And this was just normal.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
This was just a normal thing.
Yeah.
Almost like there was a reminder that was there of like, listen, like spend your time wisely because death comes for us all eventually. We don't talk about it nowadays. So I think number one, there's that within our society. And then number two is like, particularly with the entrepreneur community, there's always another thing to do. It's a never ending to-do list. So think about that for a second. If it's a never ending to-do list, then that means that there always must be a tomorrow, because you have stuff on your list you just have to get done.
Wow.
So I think it's almost like a psychological trick that we have for ourselves, so that if you don't know about a problem, therefore that problem can exist. Almost like back in the days, if you watch the Bugs Bunny cartoons, where you have the ostrich that would just go put its head in the hole and pretend like everything's okay.
Out of mind.
That's right.
Right.
So I think it's very much that way with not only society, but with entrepreneurs in particular.
So I can tell you this, right? From my personal experience and going through your analysis, it took one day away from me working.
Yeah.
And for some people, if they're coming in from out of the state, it might be, 2 days, right? You fly in the night before, you're ready to go the day of, go through your process, and then maybe they can fly that same evening, right? So let's just say it takes 2 days for a business owner that's flying from out of town. But here's the question. If you're not even willing to take 1 or 2 days away, like pause 1 or 2 days to take a look at where you are health-wise and what could potentially be coming your way, I mean, that type of behavior is already wrong. You know what I mean? It's the wrong mindset. It's the wrong perspective, because as an entrepreneur and as a producer, like first of all, you want to show up as the most optimized, best version of yourself, the healthiest version of yourself, with the most energy as possible, but not only for your business, but for your wife and for your children, or anybody out there that has, a significant other. And if you're not healthy, that's not going to happen. I mean, there's an old saying in the entrepreneur, everybody talks about how in the entrepreneur world, health is wealth, but nobody actually dives in and takes care of it.
It's like when you're on a plane, and the air pressure is going to go, they say, put the oxygen mask on yourself before you help anybody else out. It's like you, as a father, as a husband, you're always thinking about family. You're not thinking about you. What if you go down, then the family goes down. Yes. So I think a lot of it is society. Honestly, society, we were talking about it earlier, there's more money to be made when you already have the disease. And we don't, the medical industry doesn't, in my opinion, from what I've seen, they don't treat disease. They treat symptom.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
So you have to wait until the symptom becomes so big where it's noticeable. Now you go get treatment, instead of, the logical thing, which is go to blind spot and understand what potentially is going to come down the line in 4 or 5 years if you don't make any kind of change now to avoid the dis-ease.
Yeah, for the people, obviously, because Carlos came raving about it as soon as you guys went through that.
Yeah, he's telling everybody.
But for the audience out there that doesn't know exactly what went on between you guys, right? That
was my next question.
The health orgasm.
What is
that
blind
Carlos
spot
went
medical?
Through,
yeah.
Right? What is the process and what is it kind of intended for?
Why did you come up?
Proctology.
Where did this come from? Why is it in existence?
So where it came from is really exactly to the point that you mentioned. And that is that the U.S. healthcare system is very broken, and it's very much a reactive type system where it's essentially it's structured in such a way where you wait for problems to come about. And think about it through a different lens. Think about it if you wanted to make trillions of dollars, right? A bunch of companies that want to make trillions of dollars. What do? Well, first of all, you make a middleman, which is what medical insurance companies are, that charges everybody. You create a system where you have to have an insurance policy, because God forbid you don't. And, either an illness pops up or somebody gets in an accident or something and they go into a hospital. Well, all of a sudden, you could literally wipe out your life savings if you don't have an insurance policy in place. So you have to buy one of these freaking policies, right? So that's problem number one. Problem number two, now these insurance companies, they basically run the show. So it's not that the doctor works specifically for the insurance company, but if you think about this in terms of a business, every business needs leads, cold leads that become warm leads that convert, right? Mm-hmm. So any doctor that finishes, they went to college, medical school, residency, they have a ton of debt. So now they go out and typically nowadays go get a job. Rare are the days that a physician goes and starts their own practice. But for that clinic, they need leads to come in order to run the clinic. Where do leads come from? Insurance companies. So I'm sure you've done this where you get your insurance and then you get like a book. It used to be back in the day, you get a book. Now it's like you probably go to a website and it's like, okay, well, you can go to Dr. Smith or Dr. Patel. Which one do you want? You know, depending on how much you're paying in your plan there, right? On average, that doctor has 7 minutes with you. So you go, you make your appointment, you sit in the waiting room for like an hour and a half because they're running behind. You get in there, you have absolutely no relationship with this person.
Yeah.
They're sitting there tapping away at a keyboard because they have to write a note that satisfies the requirements of the insurance company that sent that patient there in the first place.
Wow.
Otherwise, they don't get paid.
Yeah.
Majority of the time, it's a medical assistant too. It's not even the doctor.
Yeah, because you know it's usually a clinic that they're trying to make a profit, and so it's cheaper to hire like a physician's assistant or a nurse practitioner and have a doctor that kind of oversees things.
Yeah.
Right. And of course, like any simple business model, the more folks you have coming in, the more profit you can make. Well, if you're making less profit, so you need more folks coming in, it just backs up the waiting room.
Yeah.
Bottom line is it makes the entire like customer service aspect of it suck.
Oh, it's terrible. It's non-existent.
It's non-existent.
And a lot of the stuff I noticed that they do is like when they treat you for a symptom, which already it's already bad. You know, you got to treat the disease, not the symptom, right? But they're treating the symptom and they're like, hey, we don't know what this is. We don't know how to cure it, but you know, this probably works best. So you're like a lab rat at that point.
Yeah.
You know,
so like here, take a pill.
Right.
And then you go to the pharmacy.
Or let's give you a shot or something like that.
So you go to the pharmacy to pick up this pill, right, that you're going to take. And then when you get to the pharmacy, it's like, okay, there's a cash price, which most folks don't even know to try for a cash price.
Right.
Sometimes the cash price.
They're not allowed to tell you, right?
They typically don't.
Yeah.
So there's like cash price, there's your insurance price, and then you could use like a coupon company like GoodRx or something like that. So you get like 3 different prices that you could potentially pay for something. So if you zoom out, you look at this entire system, very broken, incredibly manipulative.
Yeah.
It's ultimately the patient or the person that gets taken advantage of. And we're talking trillions of dollars. Trillions.
Yeah.
So if you look at that and, you know, I after a while of being within all of that.
Well, you worked at the hospitals and then you were in
20 years, man. I've been a physician
cancer care center. Right?
Yeah. So I've been a physician for 20 years. I started off, you know, in a family medical clinic where I was taking care of folks from birth to death, as well as taking care of folks in the hospital.
Yeah.
For 7 years of my career, I worked at a cancer center.
Yeah.
Where, you know, that's where I made the realization that, you know, there's a whole lot more money that people make in treating cancer instead of preventing it. You know?
Yeah.
The light bulb went off and I was like, man, I don't want to be part of this area anymore. Started working in hospitals instead, taking care of folks, admitting them from the emergency room, taking care of them in the hospital, taking them in the intensive care unit, running codes. So you may have seen on like, you know, medical TV shows where like there's a code and everybody comes. And,
he's been watching House a lot lately for some reason.
Like that kind of thing. And what really gets me is that, you know, I completely understand why people are fed up with the healthcare system. I am too. So what happens is they deflect from it and they're like, okay, well, let me get my information elsewhere. I still need to be taken care of. What do I do? So they go to a bunch of influencers or folks that actually have like no medical experience whatsoever.
And are not licensed.
And are trying to sell you something.
Yep.
Right. And what drives me nuts is like when you have, the number of times that I've had to make a life and death decision for someone where if I'm wrong, not only does that person die, but I lose my license, I lose my livelihood, I lose everything.
Like malpractice?
Everything.
Yeah.
Like if you're wrong and you have seconds.
Yeah.
So it's like, but folks will go listen to somebody who has no clue what in the hell they're talking about, and they're trying to sell you a supplement or something.
They've never saved a life in their life.
They've never had to put everything on the line to make a life and death decision.
Tell you crazy stuff like drink pee.
Or inject it. Yeah, exactly.
Well, some of these folks, right? Like, you know, it's
thought that was
funny.
A fetish or something.
It's funny because I've been on Instagram specifically since 2013, so that's about 12 years now, right? and the wave of these unlicensed biohackers, right? Like, you know, they'll shoot steroids or peptides and they'll get in great shape, and then all of a sudden they feel like they have the freedom or the experience, right, to be able to medically tell people, you know, what to do, and you know, not even diagnose. I'm not saying diagnose, but like give them medical advice on the internet, right? I mean, at some point they might even begin to start cracking down on stuff like that, if you think about it. Because
should,
right? Like here, like we were talking about earlier, right? Some of the stuff that out there that's very, very popular right now, like and I'm taking it right now, like methylene blue.
Yeah.
Right. We were talking about methylene blue, you know, that's been very popular recently. So, you know, it's like everybody's selling methylene blue now on the internet, right? TikTok, Instagram. What's your opinion on methylene blue?
So first of all, methylene blue it's not new. It's been around since like the 1920s. You know, how it started, the origin of it was to it's a completely inorganic compound. It's a chemical, but the whole origin of it was actually for urological surgery, so that if someone was going to have surgery on their bladder or something like that, for example, well, if you accidentally nick the bladder when you're in you know, someone's open during surgery, if urine were to fall into the gastric compartment, right, the actual body cavity, over time infection could ensue. So a surgeon it would be nice for them to be able to see if there was a urine leak. If you've taken methylene blue, you know, yellow plus blue makes green, right? So they would see if there was a leak happening during surgery.
Wow.
So it was basically just a dye for people.
It was a dye.
Yeah.
Like, that's what it is. It's a dye.
It's a urine
Did
dye.
Did they recently find health benefits? Is that why it's so popular?
So it was probably, I don't know, around the time of COVID is really when things happen. Is that folks were looking for basically anything that could work against this virus.
Yeah.
Because we had like
Windex.
I'm like, yeah, I mean, there was all kinds. There was like, you know, people like bleach, this and that. I'm like, it's crazy stuff, right? So people were looking for anything that would work. And that's when methylene blue started to get looked at more closely to see if there was any other benefits that there could potentially be.
Okay.
You know, so the premise behind that is some of the things that they found was that it may, keyword may, it may actually help with decreasing cellular aging.
Okay.
Okay. And then there was there's like a mashup, right? Just like you have like, you know, two great hip hop artists, like, let's get together and we'll make a mashup and make even more money with a song. Same thing. So it's like, well, what happens if you take red light and methylene blue and let's stick them together, right? If you have two things that could potentially slow down cellular aging, could that be of benefit? Could there be? Sure. Does it mean that every person should be on methylene blue? No.
Yeah.
No, of course not.
Okay.
Well, you know, an example for that is folks who have, it gets cleared through the kidneys. That's why you pee green while you're taking it, you know? So use some common sense. Folks who may have a kidney problem or kidney issues, you're taking a drug that concentrates in the kidney, maybe not a good idea to dye your kidneys green.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh yeah.
So
put some stress on it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think there's a general lack of common sense when it comes to a lot of these things. I think we're all trying to strive for live longer, live better, be optimal.
Yeah.
But that's a personal thing that needs to be personalized.
Yeah.
Not necessarily for the masses.
That'd be great for St. Patrick's Day, right?
It would be.
Right. Pea green.
There you
That's
go.
cool.
It's very festive.
Okay. Here's another very popular thing that's out there right now, right? Ozempic. Does it cause blindness?
It's a good question. So we were talking about this before. So Ozempic and that class of medications, GLP-1s, they've done amazing for especially for folks who are diabetic that had a hard time controlling the diabetes. They've done an amazing job with weight loss, right? You've like folks have lost a lot of weight when it's used properly. And then you have folks that have, you know, human nature. It's like if some is good, then a lot must be great. Not necessarily, right? So there's some folks that have overdone it a bit. And the more people that you have on these types of medications, the more data that you get.
Yeah.
You know? So yes, it's been linked to a particular type of ocular stroke, basically a stroke in one of the small blood vessels of the eye.
Yeah.
I've had a patient, well-known entrepreneur, that now has basically, it's like if you were to look vision as like a pie, it's like a quarter of the top part of the pie is now gone. It's like it doesn't.
He or she took Ozempic.
Yeah, and it's like that part of their vision,
Wow.
and I think if it's the right eye now doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Right. So let's say if someone was throwing a frisbee or something, and it was coming from that part, they wouldn't even see that it's there.
Wow. That's terrible.
And you're seeing more and more of these cases, but you're seeing it because so many people are taking the medication.
Does Ozempic? I heard it burns your muscle, not your fat, right? That's why people look weird. Like,
yeah, that's what I was actually. Let me phrase that for you, right? What is Ozempic face?
Right? It's good.
What is Ozempic face? Because I've seen Scott, no disrespect, allegedly, I don't want to get Scott Disick and some of these celebrities, man, they look pretty worn down. Ozempic face.
So one of the things that can happen with this class of medications is it works in two ways. Number one, it slows down your gastric emptying, so you feel fuller for longer. The other thing that it does is if you've ever had like a milkshake or a cheeseburger, and you have that and you're like, oh my God, man, I feel awesome. Just for those couple moments, it basically disengages that reaction that happens in the brain. So that reward mechanism that's there.
Mm-hmm.
So because of that, when you have folks that are eating less, unless they're prioritizing protein in their diet, which most folks don't, let's call it what it is. They're like, I'll take this injection. Now I can eat whatever I want.
True.
So if they're not prioritizing protein, they'll lose muscle mass. And that loss of muscle mass is what really leads to.
Does it
Ozempic
begin in the face?
It happens everywhere. So you'll have folks that they're getting kind of flabby, despite they're losing weight. It's because the muscle mass isn't there to keep the structure.
Which brings me to my next question: does Ozempic cause men to lose girth?
What is that?
Like in their manhood?
In their man stick.
Talking about the meat stick?
Yes. I mean, if you're going to lose muscle in every area of your body.
Yeah, it shouldn't.
It shouldn't.
It shouldn't, because there's not. There's
no muscle. It's cartilage. Right?
It's more tissue and blood vessels than anything else.
Okay.
What about the testicles? Does it shrink the testicles?
It shouldn't also. If anything, depending on the amount of weight loss in a person, it would allow someone to
get bigger balls.
Well, see
more of your.
More. Oh,
that's what we were talking about before. I asked him
in comparison.
So it's like a placebo.
I was under the impression that I think it was like 10 to 20 pounds you lose, you gain inch to half an inch.
It's not that someone's getting bigger. It's just that they can see it better. So there's more to see now.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. Well, there's that myth, right?
I mean, it's technically not a myth. It's true.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I guess
this is how you look.
It's perception.
It's perception. Literally.
Well, we wouldn't have to be sticking ourselves with Ozempic in America, right? If we weren't the fattest country in the world. Why is America the fattest country in the world?
We have the standard American diet is the SAD diet.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. If you think about that.
The
depression diet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have,
SAD diet.
There's a ton of debate about this, about the food pyramid. I don't know if you remember that when we were kids. There was a food pyramid.
I heard I heard it's upside down.
Yeah. I mean, and so then the question became, well, where did this food pyramid come from? Was it, the dairy industry and General Mills and Betty Crocker all got together. It was like, hey,
we need to sell more product.
Yeah, we got to sell more product. Let's just make this pyramid and say, eat this.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of debate about that.
Yeah.
There's plenty of theories online and everything. So
yeah,
I think that's really where it came from. That behavior. Yeah. Like, I didn't come from much growing up. Mm-hmm. And so when I was a kid, man, if I got a good grade on a test or something, you get like the Hungry Man meal, like the fried chicken Hungry Man meal.
Mm-hmm.
Like microwave dinners were like, oh man, this is a treat,
Yeah.
And I'm sure that wasn't just for me, that's like, I'm 47. So it was like the generation of really, that's when processed foods really became popular and was just in the pantry.
Yeah.
So, I think a lot of it is behavioral and a lot of influence that we just kind of grew up with. Now we're at a point where we're starting to see through that and unpackage that.
Yeah.
And of course, it starts to make sense where you're like, okay, well, nothing out of a bag, nothing out of a box and made by God. You do that, you're eating pretty healthy.
I love that. Okay. Here's another thing that's very popular out there, right? exosomes and what is that other where they spin it?
You have the PRP.
PRP, right? So exosomes, PRP, stem cells.
Yeah.
Very popular on social media right now. Yes?
Sure, absolutely.
What's your perspective or your opinion on those things?
I think they're great when they're used at the appropriate time. It's like a tool, you know? You wouldn't take a wrench to go hammer a nail in, right? So it's the same premise when it comes to, stem cells, a very broad term. Technically PRP, platelet-rich plasma, it's a type of stem cell. It's your own stem cells, Exosomes are more of like a concentration of growth factors. And then actual like embryonic stem cells is a combination of growth factors, but the actual stem cell itself that's taken from umbilical cord blood from placentas that have been donated after a woman gives birth, right?
Wow.
So it depends what you're using, what it's for. The problem is because there's a kind of general lack of knowledge around all this, is it's not communicated very well. And so if I tell you, hey, Carlos, get these exosomes because you take these, it's going to make you younger and, decrease every problem in your body. Of course you would be like, yeah, I want that.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
But nobody talks about, well, it depends on the concentration of exosomes. Some sources, it's a small amount. Some sources, it's a high amount. And we're talking like 30,000 versus like 2 million.
Yeah.
Pretty big differences. Nobody talks about the fact that this is still pretty new.
Yeah.
So if there's growth factors in it, if someone has a cancer present and you give someone exosomes,
it's going to increase the cancer. Right?
Is that throwing gas on the fire?
Ouch.
I mean, reason would say yes.
Yeah.
Can you ethically do a study where you take someone who has cancer and give them exosomes and see if the cancer worsens? Of course not.
No.
So this is what I mean is like either you have to have some general knowledge, number one. Number two, I think folks need to do their own research when it comes to things. Don't just listen to people.
Yeah.
And number three, these are all very personal decisions.
Yeah.
It's not just like, a simple black and white, just follow this advice for everyone. It becomes very personal because it depends on the individual, their personal history, exposure history, their family history, genetic factors, all of those things before someone goes and pulls the trigger on any kind of stem cell.
Doc,
Well, I think it even comes to any decision health-wise, even as something as simple as getting the scan or going through that hot process that he went through, right? We talked about it earlier as how you guys asked me if I would do it, right? And I said, no, I probably wouldn't.
Why is that?
Kind of the same thing. The ostrich out of sight, out of mind. I feel like if I continue to live life how I want, then it's almost, and for me, it almost feels like you're trying to play God in a sense, right? Just playing devil's advocate here. It's like you're trying to play God by seeing everything and trying to kind of prepare yourself that if this is the situation, right? If this is the situation, if you do have an ailment or something like that that comes to in the scan or in through this process, what happens? What happens? Can you take it first and foremost mentally? Right? Yeah. Let's say all of a sudden it shows up that there's a possibility I'm going to have cancer, or I'm already showing signs of it, progressing. So you see that, then you have to think, okay, well, I can go and start to do everything I can to try to combat it. But then I'm losing focus of my work. I'm losing focus of my children, my family, all those things. Right? Because the same concept, right? In putting our family first, we sacrifice ourselves, right? So in this sense, we've sacrificed ourselves. Now we're putting our family to the side to get back to where we can sacrifice ourselves again to get with our family. But I don't know, first off, if people can handle it mentally, because if I found out that I had cancer and I need to do something, how am I going to react? I already live life every single day like it is my last day, right? But this is really confirming, like, it's getting closer. It's more realistic, right? So I have a decision to make. Do I try to fix it so I can live longer, or do I just live how it is, knowing that I have it and it's always in the back of my head?
That makes no sense to me, by the way.
You said something interesting. You said that it's like playing God. I think it's kind of like you're looking at God's notes instead of playing God. You know, he's like, hey, this is what's going on with you. So it's revealing stuff that is preventable, you know?
But think about it. Think about what you just said, right? I heard a lot of, no disrespect, obviously, because everybody's entitled to their own, perspective, right?
Disclaimer.
But it's contradicting to us as entrepreneurs and business owners.
As men.
Right? Like think about a business. Think about the business, like you're running the real estate operation.
Oh yeah, I see that side of it too. It's like you're seeing where your metrics are right now.
I refuse to see your KPIs.
Right. You look at your projections, right? Your forecasts, and how what you need to do if you see something that's on the way, right? Let's just say like someone told you that like Ray Dalio came down, flew in to Phoenix, came to the office and said, hey, the third quarter of this year, we're going to have a massive real estate crash. Like, wouldn't you start making adjustments to make sure that we're positioned and get ahead of it, right? Well, I mean, what is more important than doing that with your own health?
Right.
If you're as an entrepreneur, as a businessman, if you're constantly looking to get ahead of everything in your business and the economy, right? Staffing, production, whatever. Why wouldn't you do that with your health? It's contradicting as an entrepreneur by nature to not get ahead of your own health, potential future ailments.
Right. But once again, it's like I said, I can see it from that perspective as well too. But what I'm saying is that if you know the story and you know everything, God has written our story, right? And your cousin kind of put this into perspective for me. If you know the story and you know every single chapter, word by word, all the way to the end, and it shows you that this is going to happen, 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 and it's going to be stressful, strenuous, you're going to come close to death and all this, but at the end you survive. That fear, possibly, call it fear if you want, but fear of, I don't know if I'm strong enough to go through that whole,
So it's a fear of fear?
It's not necessarily a fear. It's just, for me, once again, it's like I said, maybe it is a fear.
So you would rather live in the uncertainty?
We already live in the uncertainty.
No, with your own health.
Die.
Yeah, that's eventually the only certainty that we have.
Well, yeah, that's true, right? That's true. But okay, you have a son. He's 10.
Yeah.
He's 10 years old.
Yeah.
You have a daughter. She's 2.
Mm-hmm.
2, right?
3. Yeah.
3. Wouldn't you rather like make sure that you cover all of your like future blind spots?
Right.
I mean, isn't that why you actually created this?
That's the premise.
Because you were in the cancer center, and it was like you were as a doctor, right? You and the patient were having to be reactive,
yes,
instead of proactive.
But it goes beyond that. It goes beyond that because I think the real premise behind this isn't health in the way that most of us think of it.
Mm-hmm.
The real premise of it is purpose.
Mm.
I believe each one of us were put here for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
We're put here by God's design.
Yeah,
you're here for a purpose, and if you're not fulfilling that purpose, you've wasted your life. You've wasted just time, right? So, at the very basics of all of this, yes, you need to be fit. Yes, you need to take care of your health. Yes, you need to take care of your mental health. That's something like most folks don't ever talk about.
Right.
Most folks don't ever talk about all of the. We've all been through traumas and awful shit in our life. And you never talk about, well, those things that happen, how does that actually affect the habits that you have, the thought patterns that you keep, the physical health that you have based on all of those things? So yeah, scans and labs, that's like the smallest part of it. The bigger endeavor here is let's make sure that there's a solid foundation so that way the life that you're building is built upon fact. What you're describing, which I support you, and I put love at you, okay? But you're talking about feelings versus facts.
Right.
The thing is with feelings are like, if you imagine a balloon on a windy day, it's going to go every which direction.
Yep.
You could feel one way this time, one way another.
It's every way the wind blows.
Facts, it's a brick. You can actually build based on facts.
Yeah.
So the whole process that I made here is pretty simple. It's like, what are the facts? Not good, not bad. They're just facts.
Right.
That's it.
But based on these facts, now we can actually make some shit happen. Because you could say, okay, I've got a 10-year-old and a 3-year-old. I'm running this business. This is where I want to be in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. Hell, this is the way I want to live. This is the way I want to die.
Mm-hmm.
That's not playing God. That's you taking responsibility for the gift you've been given.
Mm-hmm.
I'd argue back to you. It's like you say, okay, well, I don't want to do scans. I don't want to find out. Do you wear a seatbelt?
Yeah.
Why?
Because statistics say that people are likely to die in a car accident when they wear a seatbelt.
Okay. But I mean, it's under the exact same logic that you just applied.
Right.
Don't wear a seatbelt. Why? If the accident's going to happen,
I'm either going to go or go. I'm not going to.
Fuck it, let the accident happen, man.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Do you check your bank balances?
Yeah.
Why?
To know if I have money, if I don't have money.
If someone's taking money out of your account, you don't know, you want to know.
Yeah.
It's the exact same logic.
That makes sense.
Wow.
So it's the same thing. It's like if you're going to apply that same logic and belief pattern in one area of the life, it's like picking and choosing.
Right.
It's either are you all in? It's the name of the podcast, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are you all in or are you not? And if you're all in,
it's closing you.
if you're all in and you're going to say, okay, I'm going to commit to this amazing life here. I'm going to commit to my family. I'm going to commit to my business, to my customers, to God. Then you better be all fucking in or not.
Is there a possibility to be able to be all in without having to go through something like that?
No.
You are really trying to avoid
No, I'm just
checking your health, are you?
No, actually, I have been the type of person that I never go to the doctor.
Wow.
Yeah, of course.
Right?
It's a pain in the ass. I get
Until
it.
this year. I went and I was like, you know what? I'm about to be 40 this year. Let me go get some blood work done and see if there's anything. Right? It's the start of a journey, right? It's the start of a journey.
You took a step. Good job.
I took a step,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, but for me, it's like, for that same exact reason, right? Because I have been trying to get better with my health, been going to the gym, trying to eat better, get the good sleep, all that stuff, right? So I am doing that. But it is a common factor that a lot of people just don't want to go because maybe it is a fear of something and changing life. Right?
Yeah, but that's okay. Fear is a feeling.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you've heard this before. It's a popular meme for a reason. Everything that you've ever wanted is on the other side of fear.
Yeah.
Right? So, especially if you're a dad, like you want the absolute best for your kids.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's the same thing. In order to have what's best for them, you have to first do what's best for you.
But do you think it could backfire too? Because like I said, if somebody ends up and you come and you get these facts and the facts are just screaming negative, right? Mm-hmm. That person can, at that point, they have a life-changing decision to make. They can either fall into a much deep depression or they can sack up and try to get out of this situation, right?
Or what's the alternative? Die suddenly? I mean,
They can't prep.
It's like
leave everybody hanging.
It takes courage.
It does.
You become a liar.
It takes some
you tell
courage. It
everybody
takes courage to build a business too.
Absolutely.
Tell everyone you're going to see him tomorrow, but you're not.
We don't know that regardless. He could have a clean bill of health right now, and we
get
could
hit
not
by
see
a
him
bus.
tomorrow.
Right?
Yeah, true.
I think that's where my mentality
Control the
is.
controllables.
Exactly.
Doc,
Control the controllables.
I have a question. Yeah. So you brought up research. You said it's good to research. Nowadays, with we all have the same physician. We have Dr. Google.
Yeah.
But how do you do accurate research? Because I have a symptom. I got a spot on my head. What do I say? Bump on head. What does that mean?
Cancer.
You know what I'm saying? So yeah, like how do you do adequate research for the layman that has like a computer, this library of Alexandria, but you don't know how to prompt it correctly about yourself? Like what advice would you give?
The scary truth is that nowadays folks who want to sell you something have gotten very good to be like, well, studies show that fill in the blank.
Yeah, right. Who did the study?
You can make a study that shows anything, So it's like, have you ever had peanut butter?
Yeah.
Great. So peanut butter, have you ever stubbed your toe?
Yeah.
Sure. So you could make a study that says that eating peanut butter causes you to have stubbed toes. I mean, it's like, you can make a study out of anything, going back to what you were saying, I think it's good for people to be informed. You got to be careful with Google. You got to be careful with ChatGPT. I think, AI has a lot of promise in healthcare, but with any of these, we're learning any of these open AI models, depending on where it goes and it gathers information from, sometimes that information can actually be tainted.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think in general, I think it's good for people to do their own research. It's just do the research to a point to be familiar. And when it comes time where you're actually going to pull the trigger on something, that's when you want a trusted advocate.
What I'm saying is where do you do the research? Do you just go to the health organization, Human Health Organization, or World Health Organization? Where do you go to read the study, in your opinion, where you could get accurate information?
I think for the layman, I actually think ChatGPT is a great place to go. And the reason why is because it sifts through, you put in Google, you get 10,000 results.
Right.
if you use something like one of the AI models, or like, you know, either ChatGPT or Claude, or there's a bunch of them that are out there now, at least you can make a prompt that will allow it to sift through a lot of the stuff for you. If you just put in headache on Google, you have 10,000 things. You know, if you put in
cancer.
Exactly. Right. If you put in, what are the possibilities of having a headache? You know, what are the possible origins of a headache in a 40-year-old male with this kind of history, so forth and so on? You know, that an AI model will give you something that's more digestible. Doesn't mean it's 100%.
You could say like, answer this like you're a doctor and
Sure.
I'm sitting in your office.
Sure. Now, caveat to that, does that mean just do that? No, absolutely. Like you don't just take the advice of an AI model, right? But if someone's trying to familiarize themselves with something, you know, we might as well use this newer technology that we have to our benefit so that you can at least be more familiar with things.
We, as we're winding down, I still got more questions.
Yeah, please.
Okay. And I feel like these questions need to be asked.
Let's do rapid fire question.
Okay. Ready? Do cell phones cause brain tumors?
There has been a link.
There's been a study.
Studies show.
There has been a link. There was, and again, you could Google this or ChatGPT it, but in folks that are on their phone for a long period of time, you definitely don't want to keep it close to your head. Either speakerphone, holding it away is probably the best. The best is like put it on your desk and push it away from you. If you use earbuds or something like that, you know, you're still getting radiation from the Bluetooth earbuds. If you do the old-fashioned thing, you plug in the wire, radiation comes up the wire.
Oh they even have the new ones now, like the air tubes,
radiation
right, that
free.
are supposed to be like the safest.
Yeah, well, it's like basically a little.
Yeah, it's basically like you plug. It's just regular headphones, but it's like an air tube instead of like the wire or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doc, what were you saying about I think we were talking off the podcast, but you were saying something about on the iPhone box, it tells you not to put the phone in your pocket or something like that?
Yeah, it's in the package insert. I'm sure it's this way with like, you know, Android phones too, but it says on the package insert, it says, don't hold it up to your head for long periods of time. It also says, don't always carry it in the same pocket, like change it around because of, you know, radiation and so forth.
So the phone that we're buying, the manufacturer of the phone, the creator of the phone is telling us not to put it in our pocket and leave it there for a long period of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all do it.
We all do it.
That's wild.
Okay, here goes more. Right. Something that's very popular right now out there is testosterone replacement treatment, TRT.
Sure.
Right. Is TRT safe for entrepreneurs?
In a quick answer, yes. But the little caveat to that is it depends. You know, it depends what you're trying to treat, what the reasons are. For example, there's a big difference between a testosterone level for a man, a 40-year-old man, to be optimized versus someone who's, you know, wants to be a bodybuilder.
Okay. Where does a 40-year-old man's testosterone level need to be?
In general, you're looking at probably a total somewhere around 750 to 1,000.
Okay. So if it's below 750, I'm sorry, go ahead.
With a free, because free is the actual active form, around 250. So that's kind of in general. But it depends on the individual, it depends where they're starting at. It depends if they want to have kids, because inevitably when someone wants, if in that, you know, the process of building a family, you get started on testosterone, sperm count will drop. So there's a lot of factors that go into play.
So I've been trying to take him to the testosterone.
Yeah, here's a question for you, right?
Clinic.
How is there any way, without simply just taking that test, to identify if you're deficient in testosterone?
So without taking a blood test?
Yeah.
There's usually signs. So
what are those signs?
What are some signs? Like what are some signs of low testosterone levels in your?
They need to teach this. They taught us how to check for testicular cancer in grades in high school.
They didn't teach me. I was in Mexico.
Supposed to grab and roll.
Oh
yeah.
So is it just like you act more feminine if your testosterone is low?
Not exactly. So I'll use myself as an example, okay? Because I diagnosed myself with low testosterone when I was 37, and I've been on testosterone replacement for a decade now.
Okay.
You know? So the symptoms I was having basically all of the textbook symptoms. But because I was a busy dad and a busy doctor, like I wasn't paying attention to it. Because once you're living with it for a while, you just kind of learn to suffer through.
Yeah.
You know, especially guys, you know, it's like, you know, close your mouth and suffer. That's kind of what we were taught, you know? So you just kind of learn to suffer through it. But brain fog is one of them. Like for me, I could drink 6 cups of coffee a day, had a brain fog that wouldn't go away. Lower energy, kind of apathetic, like not sad, but just kind of like, didn't really care, you know? Libido was very low, had no desire for sex, was having erectile issues, which was especially embarrassing as like in your 30s, even for me at any age, it's embarrassing. But,
that's right. Even if you're 80.
So that is it. So the specifically with that one, right? The erectile dysfunction, was it being able to get ready, or was it maybe after you've already gone once, getting ready again?
No, I mean, it was, you know, in general with erectile dysfunction, it's various degrees, you know, but it's usually that, you know, someone can either has a hard time developing an erection or can maybe get about, you know, 60, 70% of the way there, you know, but it doesn't last.
Right.
You know, so there's a bunch of variance that's there. And while we're talking about it, when it comes to erectile dysfunction, you have about, if the statistics are easy to remember, it's about 30% of men in their 30s, 40% in their 40s, 50% in their 50s, and it goes up from there. So if you have, you know, a 50-year-old guy, it's about a half and half chance. And this is the reason why, you know, Viagra is $1 billion drug based on that.
Yeah.
You know, but that's treating a symptom. It's not treating the problem.
How do you treat the problem? Well, testosterone replacement
number
treatment?
one is getting on testosterone.
Yeah.
And because testosterone itself, it's a very good vasodilator. Fancy way of saying it makes blood vessels open up. And erections are completely a vascular issue, you know? So if somebody has their testosterone levels right, and then you give them just like a little bit of Cialis, we're talking like a 5 milligram, all of a sudden, man, it's like 18 years old again.
Do you have erectile dysfunction, Adrian?
No, not at all.
Every guy says no.
Every guy says no. I don't have a problem getting it up. I get up at 110%.
Prove it. Go.
Yeah.
You just have a tough time.
Oh, no, I don't have a tough time getting it up. I still wake up probably like 5 to 6 days out of the week. With
That's pretty good. That's good.
Yeah,
right?
that's great.
So,
But see that. But again, Doc, let's
dive in.
Let's kill that myth, right? Just because you don't have erectile dysfunction doesn't mean that you don't have low testosterone level. Yes.
Correct. Thank you. That's a good way of putting it. Yes.
Right.
Doc,
but based off of his other things too, right?
Yeah.
Low energy. I don't feel like I have
for
low
me,
energy.
right? Like my, I can tell that and we tested my test levels.
I
and
can
be
tell
very
when you're
transparent.
low on tests.
Again, you know, I'm still ready to roll. You know, like you can ask my wife, she denied me yesterday. You know what I mean? Right. And she denied me the day before. I'm still ready to roll, but guess what? Right. Towards the early in the morning when you're supposed to have the highest testosterone levels, like I no longer have that energy that I once had as a 20-year-old or as a 30-year-old to get up and go straight to the gym and just go crazy. I don't have that anymore, right? So that's from the energy side of things. And then even on the sleep, right? I don't feel like I sleep very well and I feel rested, but I don't feel as rested as when I had, you know, some pretty high test levels. So there's a couple different things, you know what I mean? I think for me personally, the last thing that might go will be the, you know, ED.
Is it true that if you don't use it, you lose it? Because I heard that once you stop being able to like have these things, get an erection, things like that, your body automatically shuts into like, okay, our factory's done. We're not able to reproduce, which is what man is here for, right? And we're given these. So then the body just kind of starts to shut down.
We should. So here's the fact of the matter. We should be having sex daily. I'll say that again. We should.
Wait, hold on. Here, let me directly ask you, right?
Yes.
Okay. How many times per week should a man be having sex?
Ideally, every day.
Oh my God.
I used to think you were a heathen.
See? Because I have a rule in my house.
Yes.
Every other day. My whole family knows.
Need to change the rule.
It's every other day. Like for like minimum. This is minimum, by the way, right? If there's, you know, if she wants to throw more than every other day, I'm game for it too. But why are you saying that a man should be having sex every day?
So you consider it this way. Number one, let's talk about both like the body health benefits as well as the mental health benefits. Okay. So in terms of the body, first of all, you know, the majority of ejaculate comes from the prostate.
Right? Yeah.
So it's a way to keep the prostate healthy and keep the prostate clean.
It's like flushing it.
It flushes it out. And you know, if all men were to live to 120, rates of prostate cancer would just keep going up and up and up. Like, this is the reason why most guys, when we hit our 50s, prostate starts to swell a bit, start having increased hyperplasia or swelling of the prostate.
But what if you're very active at 50?
Still, there's still some degree. It's part of the male aging process is the prostate starts to swell a bit over time.
Okay.
So one of the ways to keep the prostate healthy is daily sex.
Got it.
Right. So second part to that is when it comes to erections, if you don't use it, you lose it. So good blood flow going to the penis, there's oxygen in blood. It carries oxygenated blood to those tissues and nourishes them. So the more you do that, the higher the chances you'll be able to keep erections as long as you're alive.
So is it bad to let just let one go to waste?
Yeah, absolutely.
Dr. Dave,
and then just real quick on the psychological side, so it's like, decreased risks of depression, anxiety.
I would be very depressed. Like and I'm sure there's a lot of men out there, right? That's what I'm saying. Like if you can't,
I'm sure that's a consensus.
If you can't get your man stick to get up anymore, how would you feel about that?
I would,
yeah, absolutely. And then furthermore, if you really want to talk about family, it's like if you want to build a really cohesive, strong family,
you got to have erections.
Well, you look at
or you can't add to the pipeline.
You look at the sex life of mom and dad.
Yeah.
Like when mom and dad are connected sexually as a unit and bonded that way, the family is just stronger. So it's like, well, why would you not do that? And of course, everything we just said about for men, same thing for women.
Yeah.
It's like, satisfaction, decreased levels of anxiety, of stress, better dopamine, lower cortisol.
Wow.
So it's like, why wouldn't you do that?
What book was it? It talks about semen retention.
Think and Grow Rich.
Think and Grow Rich, right? What's your opinion about that? Your perspective about that? Because in Think and Grow Rich, it tells you to hold all that stuff in to then,
to be more creative.
It does, and that's the other part of that is that Napoleon Hill also talks about the man that can master of that switch of like using that basically pent up aggression and frustration into creativity and making business happen. That's if you can master it.
And right? I think it's about like energy, right? The way you're directing your energy, right?
100%.
Like let's be transparent here. Most men, right? Most men are constantly thinking about what, right? Sex or women,
sex
right?
and money.
Or sex and money,
right?
Yeah. Paid and laid.
And in many cases, what do you say?
Paid and laid.
Paid and laid.
Yeah.
And in many cases, a lot of men spend time and energy chasing tail instead of building a business, creating jobs, right? And that's probably why Napoleon Hill, made it a point to put that in there too, because the reality is that's one of the most counterproductive behaviors as a man is constantly like, DMing women or chasing women or, going to look at women on social media, like spending time and energy doing that instead of what, right? And like developing yourself.
Right.
Exactly.
Dr. Dave, so erectile dysfunction means that there's no blood circulation, right? So is it accurate to say that erectile dysfunction is essentially like a stroke for your man stick?
It's a very smart connection. So no, it's true. It's a very smart connection. So, because if there's decreased blood flow there, then it raises the question, well, what about anywhere else?
The rest of the place.
And so atherosclerosis, which is deposition of cholesterol within the walls of arteries, if it's happening there, especially one of the first signs of heart disease is erectile dysfunction.
Wow.
And so a guy will have chest pain and try to walk it off, but if he's not getting hard-ons, he's going to be like, hey, I need some help with this.
Yeah. This is serious.
Yeah, exactly.
3 more questions, Doc.
Sure.
Okay. All right. Is social media health and wellness a net positive or net negative to American health?
I think it started off as a net positive. Because it started getting people to pay attention to their health. And again, our healthcare system in the U.S. is very, very broken. I think opportunists really saw that, and now has been the rise of healthcare influencers and biohackers, which
unlicensed,
and we've had this conversation before. I don't like the term biohacking Because to me, a hack is a shortcut, and there's no shortcuts in life. So I think initially people were paying closer attention to their health, and that was a good thing. And now it's become saturated with folks trying to sell you supplements that you don't need, or, here's this thing that it's chemical free, but it's coming in a plastic bottle, or it's, it's in a plastic bag, or something, which makes zero sense to me.
Yeah.
And so now I think it's really kind of at this oversaturation point where people are starting to get sick of it. After a while, you get sick and tired of trying to be sold something every time. Particularly when you're trying to solve a problem or feel better or just be a better version of yourself. So there's an opportunity, I think, now that spread the message, is that it's time to change the definition of health. That it's not just about your body. It's about your body, but also, your mind, your mentality,
holistically,
your spirit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
With what I teach my patients is I teach them, I'll go through this briefly, is there's 3 ordeals that you must overcome in order to win at life. Ordeal number 1 is that of your body and your mind. Our body and mind is very connected.
Yeah.
And so much so that I'll use myself as an example. I went through abuse when I was a kid. And how did I calm that abuse? Well, I ate. My food was my drug of choice. So, Doritos, Coke. I mean, man, I polished a 2-liter bottle of Coke every day.
Wow.
So I was a fat kid.
Yeah.
Right. And so that established a behavior pattern that even when I was up into my 30s, whenever I would get stressed or anything like that, I would always turn to junk food, which caused me to be overweight. And it wasn't until someone had taken a picture, I remember very vividly, it was Halloween. There were some nurses that got dressed up to help keep patients happy. I was sitting in the corner charting. Somebody had taken a picture, and I saw this fat, balding doctor sitting there. I was like, who's that guy? It was a Polaroid picture.
My God.
I was like, who the hell is that guy? I don't recognize. And I was like, oh my God, it's me.
Wow.
We look back at some of the pictures when we were big.
Yeah.
And we say the same thing.
And it's so, I was like, man, it's like it took
You just
that
couldn't do it
for me to change, really take a look at myself, take responsibility, and change some things.
The pain was significant enough for you to make the change.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is that it doesn't have to be that way for everybody.
Yeah.
Instead, when we redirect our focus and our energy, instead of trying to, let me find a quick fix, let me just fix this quick. If you stop and actually say, okay, maybe not buying a bunch of supplements that may or may not work, maybe instead take a look at, like, what are the habits that I keep?
Yeah.
How do I think about myself? What do I actually want to create in my life? That's where you actually make some changes happen. Second ordeal that you have to overcome: relationships. You've heard this before. You're the sum of the 5 people that are closest to you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
When you start looking at relationships in terms of like actual health, everything changes. One of the longest ongoing psychological studies in human history, it's out of Harvard University. It's still going on.
Yeah.
It's been going on since the 1940s.
It's Dr. McClellan, Dave McClellan.
That sounds familiar.
It's called the 99% factor, I believe.
So there's TED Talks on it.
Yeah,
and
Dr.
everything.
David McClellan out of Harvard.
And so the spoiler alert for it, because it's gone through generations of people. And what it's shown is that folks who have high quality relationships, where they can actually go and, enjoy the company of someone that they know well, live longer, live better and longer. Nowhere in there did it mention, like, what Lambo you have or how much money is in your bank account. It's high quality human relationships.
Yeah.
And when you have a relationship where you can just give without an expectation of return, and the other person's the same way, it's just a beautiful thing.
I love it.
The third thing, the last ordeal that must be overcome, is wealth.
Yeah.
And this is not the traditional term where folks think of it, because it's not just monetary. Yes, monetary is part of it, but the other part of that is knowledge, and bestowing that knowledge that you have upon next generations. So when you get these 3 things into alignment, and by the way, the one builds upon the other, you have to have your body and mind in a good place that you can then go build high quality relationships.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Yeah.
And then those high quality relationships, Brad Lee has a saying where it's the more hands you shake, the more money you make. So those relationships lead to health in both prosperity and in knowledge.
I love it.
Only then, upon that building, can you actually truly have a fully spiritual experience,
Mm.
because that's how you've changed the world for the better.
Yeah. I love that.
I do.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Dr. Dave, it's been an absolute pleasure. It's been fun. Right, gents?
Yeah.
Right. How can people get a hold of you?
You can follow me on Instagram, David Boyd MD.
David Boyd MD.
And my website's davidboydmd.com.
Boom. Very, very simple. And there will also be links down at the description. Want to appreciate all of you for watching or listening or both. We absolutely love your interactions. Please, if you have not subscribed, please do so. And try to share the show with anybody who may find this episode informative or educational. We'll see you next week. Thank you.